The guy I'm dating and his friends gatekeeped me about my hobbies and career. I'm feeling embarrassed. We have a 29 male guy that OP is dating and a 25 female OP originally posted to r/relationship advice on November 15th, 2019. I need some help processing this. They made me question whether or not I'm actually authentic when it comes to what I'm interested in. I feel like I don't want to talk about my interests with anyone because I don't want to be pop quizzed. The person I'm dating, together 3 months, I'll call him Dan, recently invited me out to dinner to meet some of his coworkers. The first red flag was he invited everyone out to a Hooters. I've heard enough. Break up with him. The fuck do you mean? Dude, if I ever get a girlfriend and unironically take her to Hooters, I want one of y'all to take me out back and put me down Old Yeller style. Cause what do you mean, dog? What the fuck do you mean? The first red flag was he invited everyone out to a Hooters and said they chose that restaurant because it's close to where they work and is easy to get to, which is true, but there are several other restaurants nearby that offer better food and a better atmosphere. Before he invited me out to dinner, he half joked that his coworkers, all of them male, didn't believe that he was dating a hot girl that's into the same hobbies as them. They are hobbies that are considered to be primarily for men. I was a little irked at that comment, but he said he was just joking around. This pretty much became the catchphrase for the men that night. When everyone arrived at the restaurant, Dan and his coworkers were making comments about the girls that worked there and their physical appearances. This made me a little uncomfortable, but I didn't say anything. What are we doing with this man, girl? Like, what? Come on, you can't do better than this guy. Once everyone ordered their food/drinks, his friends started to quiz me about my interests. Many of them share the same male-dominated hobbies I'm interested in, and they more or less just tried to see if I knew facts about the hobby, as opposed to asking me questions about what I like/don't like, or what I'm currently doing in said hobby. For example, if my hobby was American history, one of them would ask an esoteric question like, oh, so you like American history? How many $1 bills are currently in circulation? How old is the French Broad River? Listen, I don't care what hobby you like. If you're one of these people, you're kind of a chode. Like, it's like that, oh, you like this band? Name 5 songs. What if I just like one of their songs? So what? What are you gonna do about it? I also work as a junior automation engineer at a startup software company. I haven't been writing code that long as I was working in QA prior and learned how to code while I was in that position. I'm really green and I know I still have a lot to learn. The projects I'm working on are small and I'm getting help at work. All of his friends are senior level software engineers and were quizzing me about my work and trying to see how much I actually know. They were asking about advanced things I do not know about and were asking me technical questions that don't even apply to my job. But they were all smiling and laughing and would frequently say something like, aw, we're just kidding. Okay, so they're little fragile boys. Listen, this goes back to what we were saying earlier. You are the person that you surround yourself with. What you should be grasping from this is you are literally dating one of these guys that you don't like. He just has a mask on, bro. This is how he actually is. He's a Hooters going, misogynistic, fragile piece of shit. At one point, I felt like I was at some weird interview and was taking one question at a time from each D-bag at the table. I know I stopped fake smiling at some point and just emotionlessly answered their questions. I think one of them became self-aware because he just looked down at his phone for the rest of the evening, didn't ask me anything else, and just looked uncomfortable. When they weren't asking pointed questions at me, they were talking to each other and ignoring me. I'd be interrupted if I tried to include my thoughts on a subject or nod at me and look away to someone else. I should mention all these guys were 5 to 10 years older than me. I'm 25, the guy I'm dating is 29, and his coworkers are in their early mid-30s. I don't have as much experience as they do. Part of me was hoping I could meet peers who could have helped guide me or answer my questions about their careers. Instead, one of them literally asked me to give him an SQL query. They all kept saying they were just kidding around or just joking and laughing about it, but it was so cringy. Dan was sitting beside me and wasn't stopping this behavior from his coworkers. He was coaching me, I guess? Saying things like, oh, you know this one, or come on, you got this. We talked about this last week. Dan also made the comment of, see, she's really smart too, to one of the guys at the table. Girl, Dan sounds like such a fucking bitch. I mean, honey, you are 3 months in this relationship. Let's just snip, snip, chop, chop this bullshit. That whole night was just awful. He was acting irritated at me because he saw my whole mood change when I was being quizzed by his friends. He said he noticed me having an attitude with his coworkers when they were just having fun and trying to get to know me. That it was immature of me to have been obviously annoyed and that I audibly sighed multiple times when one of his friends spoke to me. Okay, so his friends were assholes to you and then he was upset at you for that? I can't stop seeing Dan as a super cringy dude now. I thought thought he was acting ridiculous and seemed more like a 13-year-old boy as opposed to someone who's supposed to be turning 30 in a couple of months. I'm pretty sure I can't go on with the relationship at this point. I don't think this is an overreaction on my part if I were to break up with him. Is it within reason to end a relationship after this event? Everything was going fine before this happened, but now I just feel gross. The dinner happened last night and I haven't returned any of his texts today. I know ghosting is wrong, but I don't want to look at him or speak to him. The thought of him just kind of disgusts me at this point. I've never felt like someone's show poodle before. I don't know if I'll feel differently in a week or if I'm just unjustified in my anger. Nah, girl, you need to cut this bitch off. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think you should ghost if you're like in an actual relationship with someone. I think ghosting is like if you guys are in a talking phase or just kind of like seeing each other, whatever. I think you just need to text them and be like, yeah, so like going to fucking Hooters with your friends has really revealed to me what kind of guy you actually are. And I don't fuck with that guy. Acting like this and he's pushing 30. You're right. That is crazy, y'all. That's coming from a guy who's also pushing 30. I do want to hop into the relevant comments here. First one, you are seeing Dan as a super creepy dude because Dan is a super creepy dude. This guy does not respect you and he purposely brought you to a restaurant and disrespected you by talking about the women there. Here's what happened. They brought you to Hooters to undermine your confidence and put you in a disadvantage. In parentheses, hi, we're a bunch of guys that are going to go to Hooters and talk about the appearance of the women there while the one woman at our table sits and watches us. They all, including Dan, treated you like a specimen as if you were a stupid little girl. Dump Dan and his juvenile, misogynistic friends, please. OOP replied, you're right. In a way, I'm kind of glad this night happened so I could see who Dan really is. Even if he didn't mean anything malicious, he's still an immature bro, and I don't want to be with that. I'm not going to ghost him. I think I'm going to use this thread to come up with a series of good pointers about how everything he did was wrong. I'm also laughing at the fact that his friends will likely make fun of him after I break up with him. I'll do it this weekend so he has something to talk about Monday morning at work. Someone asked, I wonder why Dan and his friends have to go to Hooters and leer at the waitresses when they're just so good at talking to women. OOP replied, I knew Dan and his coworkers would frequently go to Hooters for lunch. Red flag. He always told me he didn't like how misogynistic that place was, but he really enjoyed the wings. If you really like the wings that much, just DoorDash them, okay? I feel like if you're a dude, especially a dude in a relationship, there's like 0.1% reasons why you should go. I can maybe understand it if you're just like a stupid college kid or something like that. Go party, be an idiot, whatever. But I feel like once you become a grown man, going to Hooters is weird as fuck. But he really enjoyed the wings, cue eye roll. But the way that they were talking about the waitresses and even how they thought of some of the waitresses were too old to be working there really bothered me. This commenter said, one of my exes was a sex worker programmer and she what? Software, not sex worker. I was like, what? Does she program sex workers? Crazy abbreviation to use here. One of my exes was a software programmer and she had more in common with my software friends than she did with their girlfriends and wives. So at parties, she hung out with us guys. None of us made her feel uncomfortable about work stuff. Your boyfriend and his friends are not a good group of people to become involved with. OOP replied, it surprised me how shitty these guys were because everyone at my current job, male, female, junior, senior, manager, whatever, is cool as fuck. I mean, I think a lot of it is like there are some jobs that won't put up with those kinds of people, but then there are other jobs that don't give a fuck and therefore get flooded by people like the ones that are your boyfriend's friends and probably your boyfriend too. They're all helpful and super humble. The more senior people have no problem holding your hand and teaching you without making you feel like a dumbass. We have all started somewhere. Someone guessed the hobby was Magic the Gathering. OOP replied, it was actually several hobbies and interests that Dan would brag about to the guys. D&D, video games, and oddly enough, the fact that I enjoyed expensive scotch. Interesting. Okay, well, I mean, like, the only right answer here is break up with him, which it seems like OP is gonna do from these relevant comments. Sorry, I love you for thinking sex worker, not software. I've never seen software abbreviated as SW. Update and some relevant comments. All right. The update on this, November 19th, 2019, comes 4 days later. Wow, I triggered a lot of fragile men in my first post. To those who were triggered, all I have to say is LOL. The actual update is a little further down if that was all you wanted to see. Yeah, I'm not gonna read this part, guys, because I don't think it's very relevant, but basically there were a lot of incel men in the comments. Listen, all I'm gonna say is this is pretty black and white in terms of who's wrong here, Dan and the friends. If you don't see it like that, you're fucking brain dead. Update. After the post, I decided it would be best to end things through a phone call. I mentioned ghosting, but it's probably best he knows how and why he fucked up. I waited until Saturday to reach out to him, told him we need to talk. I'm paraphrasing here, but this is basically what the convo went like. Dan, this is about the dinner, isn't it? OP? Yeah, it is. Dan. And? OP. I don't think I've ever felt so unwelcome in a friend group before. It felt like a shitty interview. All they did was test my knowledge. No one tried to get to know me. And when actual conversation was going on, I was ignored or interrupted if I tried to talk. Dan. I don't feel like it was anything like that. OP. Okay, so how often do you guys sit around just asking questions like, quick, what is the SQL query if you want to delete 2 rows from 2 different tables? Dan, I don't know. OP, no really, do you quiz your friends randomly like that at work or out and about? Dan, no, not really. OP, and why not? Why don't you just ask lightning round quizzes like that? Because it's not what normal people do? Dan, I don't know. They were just having fun and joking around. OP, it wasn't fun for me. I have male and female friends in all sort of professions. I've never cornered any of them to test their knowledge. I trust they know what they're doing. I ask them about work, what they're doing. You know, normal questions. Dan, okay. OP, I'm not going to print out a CPA exam and quiz my accountant friend. Don't you think that would be a little fucked up? Dan, I don't know. Maybe. Yo, this dude is just such a bitch about it. Oh, I don't know. Okay. He knows he's in the wrong, but he doesn't want to admit that he's in the wrong. We talked a little bit more about that night, and I gave him more specific examples of what he and his friends did, and he never really had any good answers. It was a lot of, I don't know, and single word answers. I told him I created a Reddit post, and I would send it to him. He was a little pissed off that I did that, felt like I had no right to do so. At the end of the conversation, he asked if we were done. I told him, yeah, that I can't see a future with him, that I saw a different side of him that night, and I don't want to be someone's prize poodle on display for the world to see. He didn't really say anything after that, just hung up the phone. I sent him the URL for my first post. He texted me throughout the weekend, but I didn't respond. He read the post that I sent him and wasn't happy with it, and said he couldn't believe so many people were on my side and were hating on him. Bro, you took her to fucking Hooters. I was on her side after the first 3 sentences. Right off the rip, I already know how stupid you are. He sent a few more angry texts after that, like he couldn't believe we were breaking up over something so stupid. He did send a few rounds of I'm sorries and let's try to work through this, but when I didn't respond, he just went back to angry texting me. Also, I did find his friend who buried his head in his phone that night and sent him the Reddit link and asked if that sounded like what had happened. Dan's friend said that he knew what his friends were doing was wrong and felt bad for me. He apologized for not stepping in and assumed that Dan would eventually speak up for me on my behalf. He also apologized for joining them in the beginning and wished me luck in my career. All right, well, at least one of them isn't brain dead. I don't think the relevant comments here are very important. It's just kind of elaborating on how stupid his reaction was. Don't get me wrong, I think the right move was to call him out on his behavior, but I think at the age of 29, there is just such a smaller chance of especially a man changing their behavior or seeing the ways that they're wrong. That man is hopeless. I wouldn't put any money on betting that he will change in the future. Not y'all in the comments being like, yo, fuck his friend, girl. Do it. You guys are wild and I respect that shit.